If people don't feel what you say, they won't follow your voice. That single reality shifts everything about how you communicate. Most people talk just so someone hears them. Leaders speak so they stay in people's minds. The difference is not how loud you are. It is in how precise, clear, strong, and well-timed your words are. If your voice doesn't earn respect, your ideas never get a chance. If your words don't carry weight, your presence won't actually lead anyone. This audio program is your manual for building a voice that commands respect without ever needing to yell. A voice that creates movement without trying to impress. A voice that speaks to people's minds and quietly influences their choices. You don't need complicated vocabulary. You need powerful words. You don't need to talk more. You need to talk better. Step by step, you are going to learn how to communicate like someone worth listening to. You will get real, practical, direct skills that you can use right away in normal conversations, in stressful situations, and in any role where you are expected to lead. This is for people who want to lead now, not at some undefined point in the future. If your words don't lead, nothing else in your life will. It all begins here. The first key is this: own every word you say with complete confidence. That is where leadership with your voice starts. If you speak and your words have no weight, you are just creating noise. Noise doesn't move anyone. Noise doesn't shift opinions. Noise doesn't build trust. But when you speak with conviction, when you talk as if every word matters, people notice. They focus. They lean in. And most importantly, they remember. Confidence does not mean being the loudest person in the room. It does not mean showing off. It means you stand behind what you say. It means you genuinely believe your own message. And if you do not believe what you are saying, why should anyone else believe it either? Real confidence begins when you stop doubting yourself every 2 seconds and start taking full responsibility for every sentence that comes out of your mouth. Most people speak at half power. They are unsure, so they hide behind weak phrases like, I think, maybe, I guess, or I'm not sure. Every time they do that, they drain their message. They lose people's attention. The truth is simple. No one wants to follow a voice that sounds uncertain. No one buys into a message that feels shaky. No one is inspired by a person who clearly doesn't trust their own voice. If you want to talk like a leader, you must decide that your words matter. You need to mean what you say what you mean, and take full ownership of it. When you speak, people should feel that you are serious. They should sense that you are grounded. They should realize that what you are saying is not just empty talk. It is part of who you are. It is what you stand for. So how do you get there? You start by paying close attention to the words you use every single day. Most people speak on autopilot. They talk just to fill space. A leader speaks with intention. You don't waste sentences. You don't ramble aimlessly. You don't water your message down. You speak directly. You speak honestly. You show up with a presence that quietly says, I have earned the right to be heard. Confidence in your words also comes from preparation. When you don't really know what you are talking about, your voice naturally shakes. Your message breaks apart. That is why leaders prepare before they speak. They think. They reflect. They get clear. So when it is time to talk, they are not inventing ideas on the spot. They have already done the work. They have already thought through what really matters. That is why their words have strength. Those ideas have been tested in their own life first. Confidence grows even more when your actions and your words are aligned. If you say one thing and consistently do another, people will notice. And eventually, you will start doubting yourself too. You cannot sound like a leader if you are not living like one. People pay more attention to your example than to your explanations. They listen more carefully to how you live than to what you claim. When your behavior supports your words, you no longer have to try hard to sound confident. You become confident because you have earned that right. Another important shift. Stop apologizing for your truth. Stop shrinking your message just to keep everyone comfortable. Leaders do not speak to be liked. They speak to be clear. They speak to lead. If you are constantly worried about what everyone might think, you will never say anything that truly matters. You do not have to be rude. You do not have to be aggressive. But you do have to be firm. You do have to be real. That means you stand by your truth even when not everyone agrees. When you walk into a room and begin to speak, the room should feel it. Not because you are shouting, but because you are solid. You are steady. People can sense that you are not guessing your way through life. You have made decisions. You have built beliefs. You have tested ideas. Now you speak from experience instead of just opinion. That is what gives your words real weight. It also means you stop using soft language to protect your ego. Cut the fillers. Cut the hesitation. If you believe in something, say it clearly. If you stand for something, speak it out loud. If something is wrong, call it out. Many people weaken their voice because they are trying too hard to be nice. But leadership is not about sounding nice. It is about saying what matters, even when it feels uncomfortable. Confidence in your words also comes from learning to be comfortable with silence. Weak communicators rush to fill every quiet moment. They are afraid of pauses. Strong communicators understand that silence can be powerful. You say something important, and then you pause. You give people space to hear it, to feel it, to let it sink in. You don't hurry. You don't beg for approval. You say what needs to be said and then you wait. That quiet moment speaks just as loudly as your voice. There is something else you must remember. Your voice is a tool, not a crutch. You do not talk to prove your worth. You do not speak just to look intelligent. You speak to serve a purpose. You speak to guide people towards something better. When you truly understand that, your voice changes. Your tone shifts. You stop performing. You start leading. Because now you are not talking to impress anyone. You are talking to create impact. Talking like a leader has nothing to do with using fancy words. It is not about flawless grammar. It is not about showing off how many terms you know. It is about being clear. It is about being sure. It is about being genuine. People respond to that. People follow that. In a world that is full of noise, real voices stand out. So if you want to talk like a leader, begin here. Own every word you say. Stop giving away your voice. Stop doubting your message. Speak from your chest. Speak from your gut. Speak like you fully mean it. Each time you do that, your confidence grows. Your presence grows. Your leadership grows. Once you take ownership of your words, you start to take ownership of your space. You show up differently. You carry yourself with quiet power. People see it in your expression. They hear it in your tone. They feel it in your presence. You are no longer trying to sound like a leader. You have become one. And that changes everything. When you then move on to speaking with clarity so no one can misunderstand you, you start building one of the most important habits you can have if you want to guide people, influence them, or simply be taken seriously in everyday life. Clear speech is not about being fancy or complicated or impressive. It is about being understood. When people understand you, they begin to trust you. When they trust you, they listen. And once they truly listen, things begin to happen. And when people truly understand what you are saying, they begin to trust you. When they trust you, they pay attention. When they pay attention, things start to move. But if people cannot clearly follow your words, it does not matter how brilliant your ideas are. It does not matter how intelligent you are. It does not matter how pure your intentions are. If your message does not land, you lose the moment. You lose the connection. You lose respect. And even worse, people start filling in the gaps on their own. They start guessing what you meant. And most of the time, those guesses are not in your favor. This is why clarity is not optional if you want to lead. It is a core part of your responsibility. Leadership with your voice means taking full responsibility for being understood. You do not throw information at people and hope they sort it out. You do not blame others for not keeping up. You accept that it is your job to make your thoughts simple enough to follow and strong enough to remember. When you do that, you make it easier for people to support you, easier for them to work with you, and easier for them to trust your direction. Clarity is a form of respect. When you speak clearly, you are telling people that their time and attention matter to you. Clear speaking always starts with clear thinking. If your thoughts are messy, your words will be messy. Before you talk, you need to know what you actually want to say. Take a moment to think through your idea. Be concrete. Avoid vague language. Say exactly what you mean. If you are asking someone to do something, give them one clean, direct instruction. Do not twist it into a long, complicated explanation. Do not try to sound impressive. Just say what needs to be said in a straight line. Clarity also means removing all the extra words that blur your message. If you can say something in a short sentence, do not stretch it into a long one. If your main point gets buried under too much talking, people stop listening. Their minds wander. They disconnect. Your job is not to show how much you can say. Your job is to deliver the point so clearly that it sticks. Tight language is powerful language. Loose language gets ignored. Another important part of clarity is speaking in a way that fits the person in front of you. You do not speak to your best friend the same way you would talk to a new client. You do not explain a concept to a beginner in the same way you would explain it to someone with years of experience. If you are giving instructions to your team, you explain them in a way that is practical and easy to act on. If you are teaching something new, you break it into simple pieces, not because people are not smart, but because your job is to connect, not to confuse. One of the simplest ways to instantly sound clearer is to slow down. When you rush your words, your sentences blur together. People miss important ideas. Your message loses force. Speaking a little slower shows calm and control. It shows that you are thinking. It gives people time to process what you are saying. Fast talking is often a sign of insecurity. People race through their ideas because they are afraid of being interrupted or judged. But real leaders do not rush. They pause. They allow silence. They let what they say land before they move on. Those pauses make people lean in. A short silence after an important sentence gives it weight. It signals that what you just said matters. Along with pace, you also have to pay attention to your tone. Your tone carries emotional meaning that your words alone cannot express. You can use the perfect sentence, but if your tone is cold, irritated, or uncertain, people will still hear it the wrong way. You can say something simple, but if your tone is steady and strong, it will hit much deeper. Your tone is your attitude turned into sound. If it is flat, angry, shaky, or inconsistent, your message becomes unclear, no matter what words you choose. Part of speaking clearly is learning to simplify. That does not mean you are dumbing anything down. It means you are making it possible for someone else to follow you. You do not throw 10 ideas at a person at the same time. You choose your main point and build your words around it. You stick to one idea at a time. You make the path easy to follow. You give people space to absorb each thought before you move to the next. Simplicity is not weakness. It is strength. When you can explain a big idea in a few solid sentences, that is leadership. Sometimes clarity means repeating your main point once, on purpose. Not because you are unsure or insecure, but because you know that people need a moment to really grasp what matters. You state your main idea in clear language. You pause. Then you state it again, with the same certainty. After that, you move forward in a straight line. You do not circle around it. You do not keep saying it again and again. You give people just enough repetition to let the message sink in. To speak clearly, you must also pay attention to how people respond in the moment. Watch their eyes. Notice their expression. Do they look confused? Do they look distracted? Are they fully engaged? Your words should draw people in. If instead they seem lost or checked out, that is feedback. It means you need to adjust. Real leaders do not get defensive when they are not understood. They get curious. They slow down, change their words, and try again. A simple question like, "Does that make sense?" can be powerful when it is sincere. You are not asking for approval. You are checking for understanding. And if the answer is no, you do not blame the listener. You do the work again. You find a clearer example, a simpler image, a more direct phrase. You keep refining until your message finally lands. This willingness to adjust your communication in real time is one of the ways you show maturity as a leader. Clear speaking does not mean you have to hide your emotions or talk like a robot. You can be passionate. You can be intense. You can be excited. But your emotion should ride on top of clear structure, not replace it. Think of clarity as the road and emotion as the car. The road has to be solid, or the drive becomes chaotic. When your ideas are organized and your words are simple, your emotion becomes easier to receive, not harder. In the end, clear speaking is clear thinking made audible. Every time you choose a strong, simple phrase instead of a vague, messy one, you train your mind to be sharper. You build a habit of cutting away what is unnecessary and focusing on what is essential. That habit will help you in conversations, in meetings, in conflicts, and in every serious moment where your voice is needed. So make a decision. Commit to being responsible for how clear your message is. Each time you open your mouth, you can either build trust or weaken it. You can either guide people or confuse them. You can either make their path easier or harder. Stop hiding behind complex language. Stop assuming people will somehow figure out what you meant. Stop racing through your words and hoping they land. Choose a different standard for yourself. From this moment on, decide that when you speak, you will aim for clarity. You will speak with intention. You will speak in a way that no one walks away confused about who you are, what you believe, and what you are asking them to do. Talk like your words matter, because they do. Talk like someone who knows their direction. Talk like someone who has done the inner work and earned the right to be heard. That is how a leader sounds. That is how a leader connects. That is how a leader builds something that lasts. And this brings us to a new step. Before you try to lead anyone with your message, you must learn to control your voice. Your voice is more than noise coming out of your mouth. It is your presence in sound form. It carries your attitude. It carries your energy. If your voice is not steady, people will not fully trust your leadership. You can have strong intentions, a sharp mind, and solid values, but if your voice trembles, if it comes out weak or scattered, people will hesitate to follow you. When your voice shakes, if it wavers, if it sounds unsure or scattered, people feel it instantly. They may not be able to explain what is wrong, but they sense that something is off. Their bodies react before their minds do. They pull back slightly. They stop trusting fully. They become more cautious, because human beings are wired to be careful around voices they cannot predict. That sense of instability creates tension. It makes people feel like they cannot fully relax into your leadership. To lead with your voice, you must learn how to steady it. You are not trying to sound perfect. You are not trying to act like someone else. You are learning to let your voice carry your message clearly instead of letting your stress, fear, or self-doubt drive it. A stable voice tells people, without words, that you are present. It tells them that you can handle pressure. It tells them that you are not about to fall apart the moment things become difficult. The foundation of a steady voice is your breathing. When your breathing is shallow and tight, your voice becomes tight too. It rises in pitch. It breaks. It speeds up. When your breathing is deep, slow, and grounded, your voice settles. It naturally becomes fuller and calmer. This is not a trick. It is basic physiology. Your nervous system calms down when your breath slows down. And when your nervous system calms down, your voice follows. Before important conversations, take a moment to check your breath. Inhale slowly through your nose. Let your belly expand instead of lifting your shoulders. Hold for a second, then exhale gently through your mouth. Do this a few times. You are not doing a ritual. You are simply telling your body, we are safe, we are steady, we are ready. That signal will show up in your tone. People will hear the difference even if they do not know why it feels different. Another part of controlling your voice is becoming aware of your volume. Many people either push their voice too hard or let it shrink too small. When you push, you sound aggressive, tense, or desperate. When you shrink, you sound apologetic, timid, or unimportant. Leadership lives in the middle. You want a voice that is firm but not harsh, calm but not weak. You speak loudly enough to be heard clearly, but not so loud that it feels like you are attacking the room. You can practice this in everyday situations. In a normal conversation, notice if you are mumbling or if people frequently ask you to repeat yourself. That is a sign that your voice is hiding. Start lifting your volume just a little and articulating your words more clearly. On the other hand, if you know you often overpower a room, practice slowing down, dropping your shoulders, and softening your tone while keeping your words clear. The goal is not to dominate people. The goal is to create a voice that people want to listen to. Pitch is another powerful part of your voice. When you get nervous, your pitch often climbs higher. You may sound strained, tight, or as if you are asking for permission without realizing it. A grounded voice usually has more depth. That does not mean you force yourself to speak in an unnatural low tone. It means you allow your voice to drop into its natural range by relaxing your jaw, your neck, and your chest. When your body relaxes, your pitch stabilizes. Record yourself talking about something simple for a few minutes. Do not try to perform. Just talk. Then listen back. You will hear patterns you never noticed before. Maybe your voice goes up at the end of every sentence, making statements sound like questions. Maybe you rush the last words of each thought. Maybe you start strong and then fade out. None of this is about judging yourself. It is about awareness. You cannot adjust what you cannot see. As you become more aware of your habits, start making small, deliberate changes. Instead of ending every sentence with an upward tone, let some sentences finish flat and firm. Instead of racing through your last words, slow them down slightly so the sentence lands. Instead of dropping your volume in the middle of an important point, keep your voice steady from start to finish. These are small adjustments, but they completely change how people experience you. Controlling your voice also means knowing when to lean in and when to pull back. You do not have to speak with the same intensity all the time. If every sentence carries maximum force, people become numb to it. Your voice becomes noise. But if you vary your intensity on purpose, you create rhythm. You can tell a story in a calm, steady tone, then lean a little more energy into the moment that matters. That contrast tells people, pay attention, this part is important. Think of your voice like a musical instrument. An instrument can play loud or soft, high or low, fast or slow, but what makes it beautiful is not just the sound itself. It is the control behind the sound. In the same way, your voice becomes powerful when you are not ruled by your emotions, but guided by your intention. You decide when to raise your energy, when to lower it, when to pause, and when to push through. None of this means you should sound fake. People can feel when someone is putting on a voice that does not match who they are. That creates distance and mistrust. The goal is alignment. You want your inner state and your outer voice to support each other. When you are passionate, your voice can be strong and alive. When you are serious, your voice can be calm and heavy. When you are comforting, your voice can be warm and gentle. You are not acting. You are expressing your real emotion in a way that other people can receive. Sometimes your voice will shake. Sometimes you will be nervous. Sometimes you will care so much about what you are saying that your body reacts with intensity. That is not failure. That is being human. Leadership is not about never feeling afraid. It is about staying committed to your message even when you feel afraid. When your voice wobbles, do not run from it. Take a breath. Slow down. Ground your feet. Then continue speaking from your center instead of from your panic. Over time, as you keep practicing, your voice will change. It will become more stable, more consistent, more trustworthy. People will start to feel safe when you speak. They will feel that you are not just throwing words into the air. You are holding the space. You are guiding the moment. You are someone they can rely on when things become chaotic or uncertain. Remember this. Your voice trains people how to respond to you. If your voice is always hesitant, people will doubt you. If your voice is always frantic, people will feel stressed around you. If your voice is always flat, people will lose interest. But if your voice is grounded, clear, and alive, people will naturally align with you. They will feel drawn to your presence, even if they cannot explain why. Controlling your voice is not about ego. It is about service. When you steady your voice, you are making it easier for other people to receive your ideas, your guidance, and your support. You are removing friction. You are removing distraction. You are giving your message the best chance to land where it needs to land. That is a gift to the people you want to lead. Once you learn to control your voice, something powerful happens. You stop chasing approval with your words. You stop over-explaining. You stop rambling to fill the air. You speak, you pause, you listen, and you adjust. You begin to sound like someone who trusts themselves. And when you sound like someone who trusts themselves, others start to trust you too. In the next step of this journey, you will not only steady your voice, you will learn how to shape your message so that it stays in people's minds long after you finish speaking. Because a leader's voice is not only steady in the moment. It echoes in people's thoughts, guiding their decisions long after the conversation is over. A steady voice is the start, but it is not enough by itself. Once your voice is stable, you have to shape your message so that it stays in people's minds after you stop talking. Many people speak in a way that disappears the moment the conversation ends. Leaders speak in a way that echoes. Their words replay in people's thoughts later that day, later that week, sometimes years later. That is not an accident. It comes from how they build their message. The first step is knowing your core idea. Every time you speak, there should be one main thought that sits at the center of everything you say. Not 5. Not 10. 1. Ask yourself before you start talking, what is the one thing I want them to remember when this is over? That core idea is your anchor. Everything else supports it. If a sentence does not support that idea, it is a distraction. When you remove distractions, your message becomes sharper and easier to remember. Once you know your core idea, give it a clear, simple sentence. You are not writing a slogan. You are building a handle that people can grab in their mind. Short, direct sentences are easier to carry around mentally than long, complex ones. If your main idea can only be explained in a paragraph, you do not understand it well enough yet. Work on it until you can say it in one clean line that a regular person could repeat without effort. After you have your core sentence, build a simple structure around it. Messages that stick almost always have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning answers why this matters right now. The middle explains what people need to know or do. The end reminds them of the main point and often calls them to action. You do not need to make this formal or dramatic. You simply move in a straight line. You open their attention, guide their understanding, and then leave them with something solid to hold on to. Stories are one of the most powerful tools you can use to make your message memorable. The human brain is built to remember stories more easily than abstract statements. A short, clear story can carry your idea into someone's memory far better than a long explanation. Your story does not have to be perfect. It just has to be real, focused, and relevant to your point. When you share a moment from your own life or from someone else's experience that illustrates your idea, people feel it, not just hear it. When you tell a story, keep it tight. Many people ruin a strong story by loading it with unnecessary detail. You do not need every small step. You only need the parts that move the story forward and highlight your message. Set the scene in a few lines, show what went wrong or what changed, then connect it directly to the lesson you want people to take away. If they can see it in their mind, they are far more likely to remember it later. Another way to shape a message that sticks is to use contrast. People remember strong differences, before and after, problem and solution, old way and new way. When you clearly show the difference between where things are and where they could be, your words create a kind of tension in people's minds. That tension makes your message feel important. It gives people a reason to move. You are not just giving information. You are painting two different pictures and inviting them to choose which one they want to live in. Repetition, when used with intention, also helps your message last. You do not repeat yourself because you are unsure. You repeat because you understand how the mind works. People rarely remember something after hearing it only once, especially in a world full of noise. So you give them your core idea early. You reinforce it in the middle in different words. Then you state it again at the end, clearly and firmly. That pattern locks the idea in place without making you sound like a broken record. The words you choose matter more than most people realize. Memorable messages are built with concrete language. Vague phrases slide off the mind. Clear images stick. When you say, "We need to improve our communication," that is vague. When you say, "From now on, every update must be short, clear, and sent before noon," people can see and act on it. When you talk in images and specifics, you give the mind something to grab, like a hook instead of a cloud. Analogies and simple comparisons can also give your message staying power. When you compare a new idea to something familiar, you make it easier to understand and recall. You might say, "Think of this process like a relay race," or "Treat this conversation like a compass, not a map." These short comparisons connect the unknown to the known. They turn abstract ideas into something that feels concrete and relatable. At the same time, you must protect your message from clutter. Many people overload their communication with extra points, side stories, and scattered opinions. They fear leaving something out, so they throw everything in. But the more you add, the less people remember. A strong message is not about saying everything. It is about choosing what truly matters and letting the rest go. Discipline in what you do not say is just as important as what you do say. Emotion is another part of what makes a message last. People remember how you made them feel even more than the exact words you used. That does not mean you should try to manipulate anyone. It means you should be honest about the emotional truth of what you are saying. If something is urgent, let that urgency show in your tone. If something is hopeful, let that hope color your words. When your emotion matches your message, people feel the alignment. That feeling acts like glue in their memory. You also make your message memorable by making it personal. Instead of speaking only in general statements, connect what you are saying to the person or group in front of you. Show them how this idea touches their daily reality, their goals, or their struggles. When people see themselves inside your words, they pay closer attention. It stops being a speech and becomes a mirror. They are no longer listening to information. They are hearing something about their own life. Questions are another tool you can use. A well-placed question makes people think for themselves instead of passively receiving your words. You might ask, "What happens if nothing changes?" or "What would it look like if you fully committed to this?" Questions open a mental loop that people keep turning over even after the conversation is done. In that way, your message continues to live in their mind without you saying another word. To shape messages that last, you must be willing to slow down and craft them. Impulsive talking produces forgettable words. Intentional speaking creates impact. Before important conversations, take a few minutes to write down your main idea, your supporting points, and 1 or 2 stories or examples you can use. Think about the question you want to leave them with. Think about the feeling you want them to walk away with. This small preparation multiplies the power of your voice. Over time, this level of intention becomes a habit. You will start organizing your thoughts automatically before you speak. You will notice when you are drifting off your main idea, and you will gently bring yourself back. You will catch yourself when you are over-explaining and choose a shorter, stronger sentence instead. Little by little, your everyday communication becomes tighter, clearer, and more memorable. When your messages start to stick, people will respond differently to you. They will quote your words back to you. They will remind each other of what you said. They will begin to use your phrases as reference points for decisions. This is one of the quiet signs that your leadership is taking root. Your voice is no longer just sound in the moment. It has become part of the language your group uses to move forward. Remember, this is not about putting on a show. You are not trying to sound like a motivational speaker. You are learning to respect the power of your own voice enough to shape your words carefully. You are learning to speak in a way that serves the people you are responsible for. When you care enough to build messages that last, you are showing that you care about the long-term impact of your leadership, not just the short moment of attention while you are in the room. As you keep practicing, you will notice that your own thinking becomes stronger too. To create messages that stick, you are forced to clarify what you really believe and what you really want to see happen. That clarity will spill over into your decisions, your priorities, and your daily actions. The more precise you become in your language, the more precise you become in your life. With a steady voice and messages that stay in people's minds, you are ready for the next challenge. It is not enough to sound strong and be memorable. The real test of leadership is whether your words move people to act. In the following step, you will focus on speaking in a way that does not just inform or inspire, but actually leads people to make real, concrete changes in what they do. Strong words do more than sound good. They make people move. The real measure of your voice is not how inspired people feel while you are talking, but what they actually do after the conversation ends. Many people can give a speech that sounds powerful in the moment. Very few can speak in a way that quietly shifts behavior, decisions, and direction. That is the difference between noise and leadership. To speak in a way that leads to action, you must stop talking only to express yourself and start talking to create change. This does not mean you become controlling or pushy. It means you know what outcome you are aiming for when you open your mouth. You are not just sharing random thoughts. You are guiding people from where they are to where they need to go. Your message becomes a bridge, not a performance. Before an important conversation, ask yourself one simple question. What do I want this person to do, feel, or decide after we talk? If you cannot answer that, you are not ready. Clarity on your goal shapes the words you choose, the examples you use, and the way you close the conversation. When you know the direction, your voice naturally becomes more focused. People can feel that you are not just talking. You are leading. To move people, you must speak directly to what matters to them. Many messages fail because they are centered only on what the speaker wants. You talk about your goals, your pressure, your urgency, your agenda. But people move when they see how a choice connects to their own values, hopes, and fears. Leadership with your voice means stepping into their world. You show them how the action you are asking for serves something they care about, not just something you care about. This requires you to listen before you speak. If you want your words to land, you have to understand the person in front of you. What are they worried about? What are they trying to protect? What are they hoping to achieve? When you listen deeply, you start to see the real barriers that might keep them from acting. Then, when you speak, you can address those barriers instead of talking past them. Your language must also shift from vague wishes to clear commitments. Weak requests sound like this. It would be nice if we could try. Maybe we should think about. I was hoping you might consider. These phrases feel safe, but they do not move anyone. Strong leadership sounds more like this. Here is what needs to happen next. Here is the deadline. Here is what I am asking you to commit to. You are not barking orders. You are naming reality in precise terms. People respect clear direction, especially when they understand the reason behind it. When you ask for action, connect the task to a larger purpose. Do not just say what needs to be done. Explain why it matters. Explain what happens if it does not get done. Explain how it supports the bigger vision you are working toward together. When people see the chain between their action and a meaningful outcome, their motivation grows. Another key is to reduce the number of options you present. When you give people 10 different choices, you overload them. Confusion kills movement. Instead, narrow the path. You can say, here are the 2 best options, and here is the one I recommend. Or you can say, here is the next step, and once that is done, we will decide the step after that. You are not trying to control every detail. You are making the path simple enough that people can actually walk it. You also need to remove weak talk from your daily language. Weak talk is any phrase that shrinks your message before it even leaves your mouth. These are words like just, kind of, maybe, probably, I think, I guess. They make you sound like you are asking for permission to speak instead of standing in what you know. When you say, I just wanted to quickly ask, you tell people that what you are saying is small. When you say, this is kind of important, you are already watering it down. Start noticing these phrases as they come out of your mouth. You do not need to attack yourself. Simply pause and restate your sentence without them. Instead of saying, I think we should probably focus on this project, say, we need to focus on this project. Instead of saying, maybe we could try a new approach, say, it is time to use a new approach. The difference is subtle but powerful. One sounds hesitant. The other sounds like leadership. Dropping weak talk does not mean you become rude or stubborn. You can still be respectful, kind, and open to feedback. You simply stop apologizing for having a point of view. You stop padding every sentence with softeners so no one can possibly feel uncomfortable. Leadership requires you to tolerate some discomfort, both in yourself and in others. If your main goal is to keep everyone perfectly comfortable, you will never say what truly needs to be said. To move people to action, your voice must carry both clarity and consequence. Clarity means people know exactly what you are asking for. Consequence means they understand what is at stake. If nothing changes, what happens? What opportunity is lost? What risk grows larger? On the other side, if they do take action, what improves? What becomes possible? You do not need to dramatize anything. You simply tell the truth about the cost of staying where you are and the benefit of moving forward. Sometimes the action you want is small, like sending a message, making a call, or trying a new habit. Sometimes it is larger, like changing a process, ending a pattern, or committing to a difficult path. Either way, you make it concrete. You do not say, we need to do better. You say, from today on, every client will hear from us within 24 hours. You do not say, I want you to be more present. You say, when we talk, put your phone away and look me in the eye. Specific actions can be done. Vague wishes cannot. Your own follow-through is a critical part of this. People will not act on your words if your behavior does not match them. If you ask for discipline and show none, your voice loses power. If you talk about urgency but move slowly yourself, your message goes flat. Each time you make a clear request, you must also be willing to hold it steady. That might mean checking in, setting checkpoints, or calmly calling it out when the action does not happen. This is not about nagging. It is about alignment. When you speak to create action, you must also be ready for resistance. Not everyone will agree with you. Not everyone will be ready to move. That is normal. Leadership is not the art of pleasing everyone. It is the art of guiding people through hesitation and fear towards something better. When resistance shows up, you do not collapse or become angry. You stay curious. You ask questions. You look for what the real concern is, and you address it directly. Sometimes the concern is practical. The person genuinely lacks time, resources, or clarity. In that case, your job is to remove obstacles or adjust the plan. Other times the concern is emotional. They are afraid of failing. They are afraid of being judged. They are afraid of losing control. In that case, your voice must offer steadiness and confidence. You can say, "I know this is a stretch, but I believe you can handle it, and here is how we will support you." People often need to borrow courage from someone whose voice is steady when their own is shaking. Do not underestimate the power of your calm commitment. When you calmly repeat, "This is the direction we are going, and I am standing by it," you create a kind of stability that people can lean on. Even if they do not like every detail, they sense that someone is actually holding the wheel. Action becomes easier when people feel that someone is truly leading. Over time, as you practice speaking this way, people will start to associate your voice with movement. When you speak, they will listen more carefully, because experience has taught them that your words are not empty. They come with real direction, real support, and real follow-through. This does not make you perfect. It makes you reliable. And reliability is a core ingredient of trust. Speaking to move people to action is not about dramatic speeches. It is about consistent, clear, grounded communication that always points somewhere. Each conversation becomes a small step on a longer journey, not a random moment that goes nowhere. When your words repeatedly lead to real action, you quietly reshape the culture around you. People begin to act with more clarity, more courage, and more focus, because that is the environment your voice keeps building. With this level of strength in your words, there is one more layer to add. It is not only what you say and how you say it that matters, but also when you choose to speak and when you choose to stay silent. In the next step, you will learn how timing can multiply the impact of your voice, so that you are not just speaking strongly, but speaking at the exact moments when your words can truly change the direction of a situation. Timing is one of the hidden powers of a leader's voice. The same sentence can feel wise or reckless depending on when you say it. Many people focus only on finding the right words. Leaders focus on using the right words at the right moment. They know that speaking too early can create resistance, and speaking too late can create damage that could have been avoided. Timing starts with restraint. Not every thought you have deserves a voice in the moment you feel it. There are times when staying silent for a few extra seconds, or a few extra minutes, completely changes what happens next. When you rush to speak from raw emotion, you often say things you do not fully mean, in a tone that does not represent who you want to be. When you pause, breathe, and let the first wave of emotion pass, your words become sharper, cleaner, and more effective. One of the most powerful habits you can build is to insert a small gap between stimulus and response. Someone says something you disagree with. A mistake happens. A situation turns tense. Instead of jumping in immediately, you take a breath. You let the silence sit for a moment. In that brief pause, you ask yourself, what outcome do I want here? What needs to be protected? What needs to be corrected? Then you speak from intention instead of from reaction. People feel that difference. When you speak from pure reaction, your voice is tight, fast, and hot. When you speak from intention, your voice is steady, measured, and clear. The content of your sentence might be similar, but the impact is completely different. One creates more chaos. The other creates direction. Leadership uses timing to protect the quality of your message. There are also moments when silence is not strength but avoidance. Waiting forever to say what needs to be said does not protect anyone. It allows small problems to grow into big ones. It allows confusion to harden into frustration. A leader learns to recognize the point where waiting longer will no longer help. If someone keeps crossing the same boundary, if a pattern of missed commitments continues, if the same problem keeps returning, that is not a moment to stay quiet. That is a moment to step in with a clear, direct conversation. Good timing is rarely about extremes. It is not about speaking instantly or waiting endlessly. It is about finding the right window. Early enough that your words can still change the outcome. Late enough that you are calm, informed, and ready to communicate with clarity. This balance takes practice. You will not always get it right. Sometimes you will speak sooner than you should. Sometimes you will delay more than you needed to. What matters is that you learn from each moment and adjust. Another part of timing is knowing when a conversation is open and when it is closed. When people are still processing a shock, a failure, or a sudden change, they may not be ready for a long explanation or a detailed plan. In those first moments, what they need most might be a simple, grounded sentence. Something like, "We are going to handle this, here is what we are doing right now." Later, when emotions have settled, you can return with more information and a fuller conversation. There are certain moments in any group when your voice carries extra weight. Beginnings are one of them. The beginning of a meeting, a project, a season, or a difficult conversation sets the tone for everything that follows. If you drift into those beginnings carelessly, the energy becomes scattered. If you step into them with intention, even with just a few strong sentences, you quietly organize the room. People take their cues from how you open. Endings are just as powerful. The last thing you say at the end of a talk, a meeting, or a one-to-one conversation is what people are most likely to carry with them. Many people let endings fade out with vague phrases like, "Okay, cool, I guess that is it." Leaders use endings to lock in direction. They summarize the core point, name the next step, and reinforce the feeling they want people to leave with. A strong ending turns a loose discussion into a clear decision. Transitions are another key moment. When a team is shifting from planning to execution, from one phase of work to another, or from one level of responsibility to the next, people are especially sensitive to guidance. They are stepping into something new. In those transition points, your voice can either create stability or confusion. A few well-timed sentences that explain what is changing, what is staying the same, and what matters most in the new phase can save weeks of uncertainty. Crisis moments demand special attention to timing. When things go wrong, many people either go silent or start talking too much. Silence creates fear. Endless talking creates noise. A leader in a crisis speaks briefly and clearly at the right intervals. First, you acknowledge what is happening. Then you share what you know, what you do not yet know, and what actions are being taken. You do not rush to fill every gap with speculation. You speak when you have something solid to offer, and you stay available for updates as reality shifts. Timing also involves reading the room. You cannot lead effectively if you are blind to the emotional state of the people in front of you. If tension is high, if people are exhausted, if frustration is visible on their faces, that is not the moment for a long ambitious speech. That might be the moment for a short, honest acknowledgement and a single clear instruction. On the other hand, if energy is high and people are open, that might be the right moment to cast a bigger vision or invite them into a challenging goal. Pay attention to nonverbal signals. Are people leaning in or leaning away? Are their eyes engaged or drifting? Are their bodies tight or relaxed? These cues tell you whether to keep speaking, to simplify, to ask a question, or to pause. Timing is not only about the clock. It is about the emotional rhythm of the people you are leading. When you align your words with that rhythm, your message lands deeper. There is also timing in one-to-one relationships. If you need to give someone difficult feedback, choosing the right moment matters. Doing it when they are already overwhelmed, tired, or under public pressure can make them defensive and shut down. Waiting for a calmer, more private moment gives your words a better chance to land. You are not avoiding the truth. You are choosing a context where the truth can be heard instead of resisted. On the other side, do not always wait for the perfect moment to say something positive. Many leaders hesitate to give praise or appreciation because the moment does not feel big enough. They wait for special occasions. Meanwhile, people are working hard every day with little acknowledgement. Short, sincere words of recognition delivered in ordinary moments can completely shift someone's motivation. Sometimes the best timing for encouragement is now. Your own internal state also has its timing cycles. Notice when you tend to be most clear, calm, and focused during the day. Notice when you tend to be more reactive, scattered, or drained. When possible, schedule your most important conversations, decisions, and leadership moments for the times when you are at your best. That way, your voice carries your highest level of clarity and presence, not the leftovers of your day. Part of mastering timing is being willing to say, "Not yet." There will be times when someone pushes you to react immediately, to give an instant answer, or to commit on the spot. If the decision is serious and you are not ready, the most responsible thing you can say is, "I need a moment to think, or I will answer you after I have considered this properly." That is not weakness. That is respect for the weight of your words. At the same time, avoid using, "I will think about it," as a way to escape hard conversations. If you know deep down that a boundary has been crossed or a direction must change, do not hide behind endless delaying. Decide when you will address it, prepare your words, and then follow through. Leaders do not let important conversations drift forever. They choose a moment and step into it. Over time, as you become more sensitive to timing, your voice will begin to feel different to people. You will no longer be the person who speaks at random, reacting to every small thing. You will become the person who speaks at the moments that matter. People will notice that when you open your mouth, it is usually because something important needs to be named, clarified, or decided. That pattern gives your words extra weight. When you combine strong content, steady delivery, and wise timing, your voice becomes a strategic tool instead of a random habit. You know what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. That combination is rare. It is also deeply powerful. With it, you can calm tense rooms, accelerate stalled projects, and guide people through complex changes without shouting or forcing. All of this brings us to a key realization. Leadership with your voice is not only about talking. It is also about listening. The leaders whose words carry the most power are usually the ones who listen the most carefully. In the next step, you will focus on how deep, active listening gives you the insight you need to choose the right words, the right tone, and the right timing every time you speak. Listening is one of the quiet superpowers of real leadership. Most people think that leaders are the ones doing most of the talking. In reality, the best leaders spend a large part of their time listening. They listen to what is said and to what is not said. They listen to words, to tone, to silence, and to the small signals people give off without even realizing it. Because of that, when they finally do speak, their words are precise. They cut straight to what matters. When you do not listen deeply, your words become generic. You repeat the same phrases to everyone, no matter who is in front of you. You give advice that does not fit. You push people in directions they are not ready for. You may sound confident, but something feels off. People nod politely, but they do not fully open up, and they do not fully follow. They feel that you are talking at them, not with them. Listening is how you earn the right to speak into someone's life. When people feel heard, they relax their guard. They stop defending themselves and start telling you the truth. You learn what they really think, what they really fear, and what they really want. With that information, your voice can finally be useful. You are no longer guessing. You are responding to reality. Deep listening begins with attention. That means when someone speaks to you, you are there with them, not halfway inside your own head. You are not secretly planning your reply while their mouth is still moving. You are not scrolling through your thoughts, waiting for your turn to talk. You are focused on them. You are noticing their words, their eyes, their posture, and their breathing. You are listening with your whole presence, not just your ears. One simple way to train this is to let people finish their sentences fully. Do not cut them off just because you think you know where they are going. Do not rush to complete their thoughts for them. Let the silence hang for a second after they stop talking. In that space, they may add one more sentence, one more detail, that changes everything. Most people rarely get the chance to empty their thoughts out loud without being interrupted. When you give them that chance, something in them softens. Another part of real listening is curiosity. Instead of assuming you already understand, you ask questions to see more. You might say, "Tell me more about that," or "What do you mean when you say," or "What worries you most about this?" These are not tricks. They are expressions of genuine interest. You are telling the other person, "I want to see this from your point of view before I offer my own." Curiosity protects you from jumping to quick conclusions. Without it, you are likely to react to the surface of what someone says and miss the deeper layer underneath. For example, a team member may seem resistant to a new idea. On the surface, it looks like laziness or negativity. But if you listen and ask, "What is your biggest concern here?" you might discover that they are worried about being blamed if things go wrong, or about not having the skills to handle the change. Now your response can be accurate instead of unfair. Reflecting back what you hear is another powerful listening skill. That means you take a moment to summarize what the other person has told you, in your own words, and check that you understood it. You might say, "So what I am hearing is that you feel overwhelmed because the expectations keep shifting, is that right?" When you do this sincerely, people feel seen. They feel that their experience matters enough for you to replay it and make sure you got it. This reflection is not about agreeing with everything they say. It is about proving that you heard it clearly. Only after someone feels heard are they truly open to hearing you. If you skip this step and jump straight to your opinion, correction, or instruction, many people will quietly shut down. On the outside they may appear calm. On the inside they are thinking, "You did not even listen to me." Listening also means staying open when you hear something you do not like. It is easy to listen to praise or agreement. It is harder to listen when someone tells you that your decision hurt them, that your plan is not working, or that you missed something important. In those moments, your ego will want to argue, defend, or shut the conversation down. Real leadership does the opposite. It stays open long enough to truly understand the criticism before deciding what to do with it. That does not mean you accept every opinion as truth. It means you respect people enough to hear them out. You might discover that they are seeing something you cannot see from your position. You might learn about a pattern that was invisible to you. You might realize that your message sounded very different in their ears than it did in your head. All of that information makes your future communication stronger. Sometimes, listening requires you to hold space for emotion without trying to fix it instantly. Someone might be angry, sad, frustrated, or scared. Your urge may be to smooth it over quickly, to solve the problem immediately, or to tell them to calm down. But often, what they need first is to release what they are holding. If you stay present, breathe, and let them speak their feelings without rushing in, you are already helping them. Your calm presence tells them, "You do not have to carry this alone." Once the emotion has room to breathe, people become more capable of hearing logic, plans, and next steps. If you push your solutions too early, they bounce off the surface of a closed heart. If you listen first, your words later can land in a place that is ready to receive them. Listening is not separate from speaking. It is what prepares the ground for your words. In group settings, listening means making space for quieter voices, not just the ones who always speak first. Some people need a little more time to gather their thoughts. Some are less comfortable speaking in loud environments. If you only listen to those who jump in quickly, you miss out on valuable insight. You can change this by intentionally inviting others to share. You might say, "We have heard a few strong opinions already, I would like to hear from those who have not spoken yet." That simple sentence can unlock hidden wisdom in the room. To become a better listener, you must also listen to yourself. Notice your own reactions when people speak. Do you get impatient? Do you feel threatened? Do you mentally argue with them while they are still talking? Do you shut down when certain topics come up? These reactions are like internal alarms. If you can notice them without acting on them, you gain the power to choose a better response. You can say internally, I feel defensive right now, but I am going to stay open and keep listening. Self-listening also means paying attention to the moments when your inner voice is telling you something important. You might feel a quiet discomfort about a decision, a sense that a conversation needs to happen, or a repeated thought that you keep pushing away. Many leadership failures do not come from a lack of information, but from ignoring the signals your own mind and body are sending you. When you build the habit of listening inward, you make fewer careless moves outward. All of this listening is not passive. It is active. You are engaged, awake, and present. You nod. You ask questions. You reflect. You clarify. You give people the sense that while they are speaking, they are the most important person in your world. This level of attention is rare, and people can feel it instantly. It builds trust faster than any speech you could give. As your listening deepens, your words naturally improve. You no longer have to guess what to say. The people around you have already told you, through their stories and their struggles, what they need to hear. Your messages become more accurate because they are built from real data, not from assumptions. Your tone becomes more precise because you know the emotional landscape you are speaking into. Over time, people will begin to experience you differently. They will come to you not just for answers, but because they know they can speak freely in your presence. They will share problems with you earlier, before they explode. They will bring you ideas, feedback, and even warnings, because they trust that you will listen instead of punishing them for honesty. That flow of information is one of the greatest advantages a leader can have. When you understand how listening multiplies the power of your voice, you start to see your communication as a complete cycle instead of a series of isolated speeches. You listen, you learn, you speak, you adjust, and then you listen again. In the next step, you will explore how this ongoing cycle shapes your long-term identity as a leader, and how every conversation, no matter how small, slowly builds the reputation your voice will carry for years to come. Every time you open your mouth, you are adding another line to the story people tell themselves about who you are. That story is your reputation. It is the invisible picture that forms in other people's minds long before you walk into a room. Your voice is one of the main tools that shapes that picture. Whether you are aware of it or not, your words, your silences, your tone, and your timing are building an identity for you as a leader. Some people build this identity by accident. They speak without thinking, react without reflection, and drift through conversations on autopilot. Over time, people quietly decide, this person is scattered, or this person is hard to trust, or this person never really says anything that matters. Those judgments might never be said out loud, but they exist. And once they form, they are hard to change. Other people build their identity on purpose. They decide what kind of leader they want to be known as, and then they align their communication with that choice. They understand that their reputation is not created in one big moment, but in hundreds of small ones. It is not just the big presentation or the official speech that counts. It is the short comment in a meeting, the quick answer in a hallway, the message sent in a rush, the way they respond when someone disagrees. All of these small moments are votes in favor of the leader they are becoming. If you want your voice to support a strong leadership identity, you must first decide what that identity is. Ask yourself, when people think of me as a leader, what do I want them to say? Not about your job title or your achievements, but about the way you show up. Do you want to be known as steady? As clear? As courageous? As fair? As calm under pressure? As someone whose words can be trusted? Choose 3 or 4 qualities that truly matter to you, and let them become your internal standard. Once you have those qualities in mind, begin to measure your communication against them. If you want to be known as steady, but your voice frequently sounds frantic or reactive, that is a gap to close. If you want to be known as clear, but your messages are often vague or full of mixed signals. That is a gap to close. If you want to be known as courageous, but you avoid hard conversations and hide behind soft language, that is a gap to close. You do not judge yourself harshly. You simply use the gap as information. Your voice becomes powerful when it matches your character. If you talk about integrity but bend the truth, people feel it. If you talk about respect but regularly interrupt and dismiss others, people feel it. If you talk about responsibility but always blame others when something goes wrong, people feel it. Over time, they stop listening to your words and pay attention only to your actions. Your reputation then becomes, they say the right things, but they do not live them. On the other side, when your inner life and outer voice are aligned, you do not have to try so hard to sound like a leader. You simply speak from who you are. If you are genuinely committed to honesty, your voice carries that honesty. If you really care about the people you lead, your tone naturally reflects it. If you are truly focused on the mission, your words stay anchored to it instead of drifting into gossip and blame. People sense this alignment even if they cannot describe it. They feel, this person is real. One practical way to strengthen your leadership identity is to choose a few non-negotiable standards for your communication. For example, you might decide, I do not raise my voice to attack people. I do not talk about someone behind their back instead of speaking to them directly. I do not make promises I am not sure I can keep. I do not lie to avoid discomfort. I do not give important feedback through vague hints. These decisions become the guardrails for your voice. At first, you will not meet these standards perfectly. You will slip. You will say something you regret. You will avoid a hard conversation you should have had. That is part of growth. The key is to notice it quickly, take responsibility, and repair what you can. Sometimes that means apologizing. Sometimes it means clarifying something you said. Sometimes it means going back to a conversation you avoided and having it properly. Each time you do this, you shape your identity as someone who owns their voice instead of hiding from it. Consistency is another pillar of your reputation. People trust leaders whose words are stable over time. That does not mean you never change your mind. It means that when you do change your mind, you explain why. You take people along your thinking. You might say, last month I said this, but here is new information we now have, and here is why we are adjusting. That kind of transparency makes your shifts feel like growth, not like instability. Inconsistent communication, on the other hand, confuses people. One day you say something is a top priority. The next week you act as if it does not matter. One day you speak with warmth and openness. The next day you are cold and distant without explanation. People do not know which version of you they will get, so they step back. They become cautious with their trust. Your voice loses its impact because your presence feels unpredictable. Another aspect of your leadership identity is how you speak when people are not in the room. The way you talk about others when they are absent always finds its way back to them, directly or indirectly. If you regularly criticize, mock, or blame people behind their backs, you teach everyone around you that they are not safe with you. They know that if you talk this way about others, you will eventually talk this way about them. Your reputation becomes sharp, but unsafe. If instead you discipline yourself to speak with respect even when people are not present, you build a very different identity. You might address real problems and real mistakes, but you do it without attacking someone's dignity. You focus on behavior and decisions, not on dragging someone's character through the mud. Word spreads about that too. People begin to understand, I can be honest with this person because they will not use my weaknesses as weapons later. The way you use your voice in moments of power also defines your identity. When you have the final say, when you are the one people must answer to, when you control resources or opportunities, your words carry extra weight. In those moments, you can use your voice to threaten, to intimidate, or to make people feel small. Or you can use it to set clear expectations, to offer support, and to create an environment where people can do their best work without being crushed by fear. People remember very clearly how a leader spoke to them when they were vulnerable. When they had made a mistake. When they were new. When they were learning. When they were going through something difficult in their personal life. If you use your voice to shame them, they may obey you on the surface, but they will slowly pull their heart away from your leadership. If you use your voice to be firm but fair, clear but humane, they will remember that too. It becomes part of the story they tell about you. Your identity as a leader is also shaped by how you speak about your own mistakes. Some leaders never admit when they are wrong. They twist their words to protect their image. They blame circumstances, other people, or misunderstandings. Over time, people learn not to bring honest feedback to them, because what is the point? Nothing will change. The leader's reputation becomes, they cannot be told the truth. A different kind of leader does something more courageous. They say things like, I was wrong about that decision, here is what I have learned, or I did not communicate clearly, and that caused confusion, here is what I should have said. These moments do not weaken your authority. They strengthen it. People see that your ego is not driving the conversation. Your commitment to reality is. They realize that you care more about getting it right than about looking right. Little by little, your daily communication builds a track record. When your words match your actions, when your tone matches your values, when your promises match your behavior, people begin to trust not just what you say now, but what you will say later. Your voice starts to carry a kind of accumulated credit. Even when you deliver hard news or ask for difficult change, people are more likely to follow, because your history has shown them that you do not use your voice lightly. You are not aiming to be perfect. You are aiming to be reliable. Reliable leaders do exist. Reliability means that people can predict your core behavior even if they cannot predict every detail. They know that you will be honest, even when the truth is uncomfortable. They know that you will listen, even when the topic is difficult. They know that you will explain your decisions, even when they disagree. That kind of predictability is a form of safety. At the center of all this is one simple reality. Your voice is not separate from your life. The sentences you speak are not floating above who you are. They grow out of your beliefs, your habits, your courage, and your character. When you work on your voice, you are also working on yourself. When you discipline your speech, you are also disciplining your thinking. Leadership with your voice is ultimately leadership of your own inner world. In the final step, you will bring everything together. You will see how clarity, confidence, control, timing, listening, and identity all combine to create a way of speaking that can quietly transform the spaces you move through. You will be reminded that this is not about sounding impressive, but about becoming the kind of person whose words consistently move people toward what is right, what is necessary, and what is possible. This final step is about seeing your voice as a daily practice instead of a one-time transformation. You do not wake up one morning suddenly speaking like a leader in every situation. You build it, piece by piece, through repeated choices. Each conversation becomes a place to practice clarity. Each meeting becomes a place to practice confidence. Each difficult moment becomes a place to practice steadiness, timing, and listening. Leadership with your voice is not a switch you flip. It is a muscle you train. Think of your communication like physical training. One workout does not change your body. Consistent effort over time does. In the same way, one powerful conversation will not define you as a leader. What defines you is the pattern. Do you keep showing up with intention? Do you keep adjusting when you fall back into old habits? Do you keep choosing strong words over weak ones, honest words over convenient ones, steady words over reactive ones? These repetitions slowly reshape the way you speak. Start small. Do not wait for a huge presentation or a major crisis to practice these skills. Begin with your everyday interactions. When a friend asks how you are, answer a little more clearly and honestly instead of hiding behind automatic phrases. When you send a message, take 10 extra seconds to remove the vague language and say exactly what you mean. When you notice yourself about to soften your voice with unnecessary apologies, pause and restate your sentence with calm certainty. Choose one or two specific habits to focus on at a time. For example, you might decide that this week you will work on cutting out weak phrases like just, kind of, maybe, probably, I think, and I guess. Each time you hear those words coming out of your mouth, you stop, breathe, and say the sentence again without them. Next week, you might focus on slowing your pace and using pauses so your words can land. The week after, you might focus on clear requests and concrete next steps. By breaking it down, you avoid overwhelming yourself. You are not trying to become a perfect communicator overnight. You are aiming for gradual, steady improvement. Small wins matter. Each time you express a thought more clearly than you would have last year, that is progress. Each time you hold your tone steady in a conversation that would have shaken you before, that is progress. Each time you listen fully instead of rushing to respond, that is progress. Progress is the real measure, not perfection. Reflection is a powerful partner for this growth. At the end of the day, think back on 2 or 3 important conversations you had. Ask yourself, what did I do well with my voice today? Where did I fall back into old patterns? Where did I miss a chance to be clearer, calmer, or braver? You do not do this to punish yourself. You do it to learn. You might even write down one sentence you wish you had said differently, so that next time, your mind has a stronger model ready. You can also ask for feedback from people you trust. Not from everyone, but from those who genuinely want to see you grow. You might ask, when I speak in meetings, how does my voice come across to you, or when I am under pressure, how does my communication change? Be ready to hear answers that surprise you. Some of them may sting a little. But hidden inside that discomfort is valuable information. It is a mirror that shows you how your voice lands in the real world, not just how it sounds in your own head. As you practice, remember that your goal is not to sound like someone else. It is to become the clearest, strongest, most honest version of your own voice. You may speak with more energy than another leader, or with more quiet calm. You may use more stories, or more direct statements. You may naturally be more humorous, or more serious. There is room for all of that. What matters is that your style remains anchored in respect, clarity, and responsibility. Do not underestimate the quiet impact of small, consistent changes. When you start owning your words more fully, people feel it. When you stop apologizing for every opinion, people notice. When you are willing to pause instead of reacting instantly, tense conversations soften. When you choose directness over vague hints, projects move faster. When you listen deeply before speaking, trust grows. None of this requires a spotlight. It happens in ordinary rooms, in ordinary moments. There will be days when you slip back into old habits. You will rush your words. You will avoid a conversation you know you should have. You will hear yourself use soft language to dodge discomfort. When that happens, do not decide that you are failing. Decide that you are training. No one becomes physically strong by only lifting weights on days when they feel perfect. You grow by showing up again after you fall short. The same is true for your voice. On those days, your most powerful move is to reset quickly. You might say to someone, "Let me say that again more clearly," or "I realize I was not fully listening just now, please repeat that," or "Earlier I avoided giving you a straight answer, here is what I really think." These small corrections are not signs of weakness. They are signs of maturity. They show that you are paying attention to your own communication and that you care enough to improve it in real time. Over months and years of this kind of practice, you will look back and barely recognize the way you used to speak. You will notice that conversations that once terrified you now feel manageable. You will see that your words carry more weight, not because you are louder, but because your track record backs them up. You will find that people seek you out in moments of uncertainty because your way of speaking brings calm and direction instead of confusion. Your growth will not only benefit you. It will change the atmosphere around you. When you speak with clarity, other people will start doing the same. When you refuse to gossip or attack people behind their backs, that behavior will slowly lose oxygen in your circles. When you listen deeply, others will start listening more carefully too. When you set a standard of steady, honest communication, you quietly raise the bar for what is normal in your environment. You may never see all the ripple effects of this work. You will not know every decision that was influenced by a sentence you spoke months ago. You will not witness every moment when someone repeated your words to themselves in a difficult situation and chose courage instead of fear. But those ripples are real. Leadership with your voice is not always dramatic. Often, it looks like one person, in one moment, choosing to speak with just a little more integrity than they did yesterday. In the larger story of your life, your voice is one of the main tools you have to shape the world immediately around you. You cannot control everything. You cannot fix every problem. You cannot dictate what others will do. But you can control the words you choose. You can control the tone you use. You can control whether your voice adds clarity or confusion, courage or fear, healing or harm. When you choose to use your voice with clarity, confidence, steadiness, good timing, deep listening, and a strong identity, you are doing more than improving your communication. You are creating momentum for yourself and for the people around you. Bit by bit, conversation by conversation, you are building a life and a leadership style that move in a clear direction. All of this is a journey, not a quick fix. But it is a journey worth taking. Each time you open your mouth, you face a choice. Will you speak on autopilot, or will you speak with intention? Will you hide behind soft words, or will you stand calmly in what you know is right? Will you use your voice to protect only yourself, or will you use it to support, guide, and strengthen others? The more often you choose intention over autopilot, the more your voice becomes a tool you can trust. And when you can trust your own voice, you stop chasing every external signal of approval. You begin to lead from a deeper place. You know who you are. You know what you stand for. You know that when it is time to speak, your words will not be perfect, but they will be real, grounded, and useful. In the final part, you will receive a simple, practical framework you can return to whenever you feel lost or uncertain about how to speak in a difficult moment. It will serve as a checklist you can carry in your mind, helping you bring together everything you have learned into a single, clear approach each time you need your voice to truly lead. This final part is a simple framework you can carry with you into any important conversation. It is not a script. It is a sequence of questions you ask yourself so that your voice comes from a place of clarity instead of chaos. You can run through these questions in a few quiet seconds before you speak, or you can use them to prepare for bigger moments. Each question brings together the skills you have been building. The first question is, what is the real point? Before you say anything, you bring your focus back to the core idea. You ask yourself, what is the one thing I want them to understand or remember? Not 3 things, not 10, 1. This instantly cuts away the noise. It stops you from drifting into long explanations that do not go anywhere. When you know your real point, every sentence you speak becomes more intentional. The second question is, who am I really talking to right now? Not in the general sense, but in this exact moment. Are you speaking to someone who is tired, defensive, hopeful, confused, excited, or afraid? Are you speaking to a beginner, a peer, or an expert? Are you speaking to one person or to a group with mixed needs? When you pause to consider who is in front of you, your tone, your examples, and your timing naturally adjust. You stop speaking from habit and start speaking in a way that actually fits the person or people in front of you. The third question is, what outcome am I asking for? Your voice becomes leadership when it aims at movement, not just expression. Ask yourself, after this conversation, what do I hope they do, decide, or feel? Maybe you want them to take a specific action. Maybe you want them to see a situation differently. Maybe you want them to feel supported instead of alone. Whatever the answer is, name it to yourself. That clarity will shape the way you close your message and how direct your requests are. The fourth question is, what needs to be said clearly, and what does not need to be said at all? Many conversations become heavy and confusing because we pile on extra words that do not serve the moment. You do not need to say everything you are thinking. You need to say what is necessary for understanding, for honesty, and for movement. This question helps you cut out the side comments, the hidden jabs, the long detours, and the old complaints that do not belong in this particular moment. The fifth question is, what is my emotional state, and do I need to steady it before I speak? This is where your breathing, your self-awareness, and your timing all come together. If you notice that you are angry, anxious, or flooded with stress, your first job is not to deliver the perfect sentence. Your first job is to slow your breath, feel your body, and bring yourself back into the present. You can even tell the other person, I want to answer you clearly, give me a moment to think. This is not weakness. It is control. Once your emotions are steadier, your voice can carry strength without aggression and honesty without harshness. The sixth question is, have I listened enough? Before you deliver your point, you check whether you truly understand what is happening in front of you. Have you asked the right questions? Have you reflected back what you heard? Have you given the other person the chance to empty their thoughts and feelings? If the answer is no, then the next step is not to talk more, but to listen more. When you have listened enough, your words become more accurate, and your chances of being heard rise sharply. The seventh question is, what is the simplest way to say this truth? Complexity is easy. Simplicity takes courage. You look for the sentence that is honest, direct, and respectful. You avoid wrapping your message in layers of apologies, excuses, or vague hints. You do not use complicated language to hide what you really mean. You speak plainly, like someone who respects both themselves and the person in front of them. The eighth question is, what is the next concrete step? Even the clearest idea will fade if it does not translate into action. Before you finish speaking, you consider what specific next move would make sense. Is there a decision to be made? Is there a message to be sent, a habit to start, a meeting to schedule, a deadline to set? You do not need to map out the entire future. You simply name the next step. When people leave a conversation knowing exactly what comes next, your leadership has done its job. The ninth question is, how can I close this in a way that strengthens trust? Endings echo. The last thing you say in a conversation lingers in people's minds. You might end with a summary of the main point, a clear agreement about the next step, or a brief expression of support or appreciation. You do not drift out of the moment with vague phrases. You choose a closing line that leaves people feeling more oriented, more respected, and more aware of where things stand. The 10th question is one you ask yourself after the conversation is over. How did my voice show up just now, and what can I learn from it? This is where growth happens. You look back without cruelty. You notice where you were clear and where you were confusing, where you were steady and where you were reactive, where you listened well and where you rushed. You might find one sentence you wish you had said differently and keep it in your mind as a better model for next time. With each reflection, your future voice becomes sharper. You do not need to run through all of these questions out loud. Over time, they become a quiet checklist in the background of your mind. Before you speak, you remember your point, your listener, your desired outcome. While you speak, you stay aware of your state, your simplicity, your timing. After you speak, you reflect and adjust. Slowly, this cycle becomes automatic. It becomes part of who you are. When you live this way, your voice stops being something random and becomes something reliable. People begin to know what to expect when you open your mouth. They expect clarity instead of confusion. They expect honesty instead of performance. They expect steadiness instead of volatility. They expect that even when you deliver hard news or strong truth, you will do it with respect. There will still be moments when you stumble, when your words come out wrong, when your timing is off, or when your emotions spill over. That is part of being human. What separates a leader is not a flawless record, but a consistent return to intention. Each time you notice that you have fallen short, you come back to these questions. You apologize where needed. You clarify where needed. You reset and keep moving. In the end, talking like a leader is not about sounding powerful. It is about being responsible with the power your words already have. Your voice can wound or it can heal. It can divide or it can unite. It can confuse or it can clarify. It can feed fear or it can strengthen courage. When you choose your words with care, when you align them with your values, and when you use them to support the people around you, your leadership grows quietly, day after day. You may never know all the ways your voice shapes the lives around you. But you will feel the difference in your own life. You will move through conversations with more calm and purpose. You will hear your own words and recognize that they belong to someone who is learning to lead from the inside out. That is the real victory. Not applause. Not perfect speeches. But a steady, growing confidence that when it truly matters, you can open your mouth and trust what comes out. From here, the work continues in your daily life. Each message you send, each meeting you join, each conflict you face, and each decision you explain is another chance to practice. There is no finish line, only deeper levels of clarity and courage. But you already have everything you need to begin. Your voice is with you. Your intention is with you. And every time you choose to use both with care, you are already talking like a leader.